Welcome back. This is Native Honor Hours. My name is Ed Zendejas. I'm your co-host along with...
Cindy Krafka. Actually, I'm the co-host. You're the host.
Is that how it is? I thought it was...
No, that's it.
Okay.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Happy to be back. I have to say this right off the start because I was sitting in a restaurant. You know, I take my dad out to breakfast and lunch and, you know, this old restaurant that we hang out at down on South Omaha. And I'm sitting there, and this old guy that, you know, is one of the regulars there, comes up to me and says, "I saw you on TV.
No.
You were on TV, weren't you?" And I'm like, "I think so, yeah." I didn't know when they were running or these.
Have you watched any of them?
No, I haven't watched it. But I'm just letting you know that somebody actually was watching and recognized me and said, "Yeah." I said, "Did you actually watch?" "Yeah, since I knew you from around here, I actually sat and you guys were all right." So we
actually sound much more intelligent than we are.
Yeah, I know. We really aren't.
No.
I shouldn't say that. You aren't that intelligent.
No, you aren't that intelligent.
But we actually had somebody that came up to me and said that they were watching. So
is he a fan? Can we say we have a fan?
One.
What?
Because he said he watched.
Hey.
If he stuck around and watched.
Cassie watched.
Okay, then we might have two fans. But we're back, and we thought we might spend a little bit of time talking about what happened in 2017, touch on a little bit of the highlights and maybe a couple lowlights.
Some of the lowlights, yeah.
Yeah, but...
you know what? Have you thought about who was your knucklehead of the year?
Oh, my knucklehead of the year is hands down. It's always got to be Dan Snyder.
Yep.
Dan Snyder will be knucklehead for almost infinity, I think. So Dan Snyder, owner of the team in Washington, I'll get that out there right there. Since you asked me,
yeah.
Dan Snyder, Washington football team, he's the knucklehead of infinity.
I think we know who my knucklehead of the year is.
Who's your knucklehead?
He runs the United States.
Well, yeah.
Special circumstances. I get to put him in his knucklehead.
That's a pretty big knucklehead, but mine is specific to... Native stuff.
Well, you know, specific to Native stuff.
Yeah, it's not going to look good here for Native. Oh, yeah. Speaking of what happened, we have to start off with, we got a new leader and a couple things that didn't necessarily help Indian country. The first thing he did was sign overturning the last president's moratorium on Dakota Access Pipeline. Mm-hmm. And pretty much open the door for the pipeline to be running and operational.
And what has since happened?
And what has happened since then?
Could it be a pipeline accident?
Could have been a pipeline leak?
Could it have been an incident?
Yeah. Which pipeline was it?
Could it have been DAPL?
It might have been, yeah. Mm-hmm. So.
You mean the Indians were right?
Who knew? Who knew?
How exciting.
But that's what happened. The president signed did away with the last executive order, signed a new one, opened it up, and... First
thing we saw him do was sign it and hold it up.
How many gallons was it that leaked? A couple 100,000 or something like that? That we know of.
That we know of.
Because you know when they say only 200, that's...
Well, when they don't let you in to look it over.
Yeah.
You know that there's some fibbing going on somewhere.
So that started off kind of as a low point. I mean, all the stuff that happened then, I guess for not. But I think Indian country is still unified in their opposition.
That was the best thing. That was the best thing. To my mind, AIM brought people together from different parts of the country, but not more as little pockets. Everybody had their own little, and we marched on Washington, those kind of things. But this brought people from all over the country and the world to Standing Rock. And people from tribes that would have never known each other got to be exposed to each other's culture and got to see that we're more alike than we are different. We stood together for the first time.
So it started off, doing away with the last executive order. And also, speaking of executive orders, he did away with another executive order that affects Indian country. And that was the monuments.
Yep.
And basically said, I think it's going to open it up for maybe more pipelines and more development.
Well,
what
hopefully the
happens there.
courts will hold all of this up until he gets out. I heard so far 6 tribes have a lawsuit against it?
Yeah, there's a number of tribes in the Utah area that filed a lawsuit against it. I think the Navajos and the Utes.
I think they could keep him in court for 3 years.
I don't know.
It'd take a team of dedicated lawyers just for that, because it would be costly.
Yeah,
It would be costly to fight the government.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. The litigation it's going to take money, and the United States government has basically endless resources to do this, and if the government wants it done, they'll put their resources against it. So I'm not that optimistic.
You know, another thing that came to mind, and it was his continual use of the word Poncahantus.
In reference to
Elizabeth
his
Warren.
opponent, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, I'm feeling kind of down right now, Tom. We need to probably change. So,
bring it up.
So that was a couple of things.
Who would be your your opposite of knucklehead of the year? Who would you be thinking?
You know what? You should have given me some lead time for that.
I know, because there's a lot of people.
There is.
The chairman of the Standing Rock Sioux.
Yeah, but
tribe.
you know what? He didn't win re-election.
I know.
This is what happens in Indian country. If you're perceived by your people as trying to be a national leader as opposed to a tribal leader, they'll hold you accountable for that.
Sadly, though, this was a national movement. It was a national movement. I heard, who did I just see? He got a job with someone. He got a good job. Archibald.
Archambault.
Archambault?
I think so.
Archambault.
But yeah, and Indian country will hold you accountable for that if they perceive you as, not taking care of business at home and trying to get more of the national limelight. But no, he's a candidate definitely, and there's several others.
It was nice to hear him speak.
Yeah.
He was intelligent. He was calm. He was an excellent speaker for the movement.
You know who I like, just as all around, just good guy and always doing good things?
Who?
Billy Mills.
I knew you were going to say that, and I just saw he just recently got more scholarship money. Am I mistaken? Something happened.
He runs. He does the Running Strong, and that's a foundation that goes out and just does good things. My youngest son and daughter got one of their Dream Starter grants, and Gary Farmer and Billy Mills went out to the powwow that they put on with this grant. But they do all sorts of things throughout Indian country, and Billy Mills he's just a good, honest, a man of integrity. He should be president. Billy Mills should be president.
I also think that something that's exciting and we haven't seen for a long time is young ones starting to stand up. Some leaders are starting to come out of this movement and the change. Every day I read something a young Native has done, or a stand they've taken, or a program they've started. It's good to see that.
Do you know who's sort of come out in the forefront of that? There's a couple of them, that Dallas Goldtooth, who was originally with the 1491, sort of a comedy
guy,
film crew, and sort of came out of that comedy into the more serious realm of
he was the voice of Standing
Rock and some other political things. So he's sort of taken the forefront. And your nephew,
Frank Wan.
He's
a good kid.
He's sort of in the forefront with not only his music but also with his stance on some political issues. He doesn't back away.
No.
And he reflects that in his music. And what I think is important about him is that he touches the younger people.
Well, and if you listen to his rap, which I'm going to be the first to admit is not something I'm going to sit around and listen to on a daily basis, but when you listen to the words of his rap, wow. I mean, his message is
If I could just
amazing.
Understand it.
See, I can understand it.
If they put the subtitles underneath that, as he's rapping, I probably have a greater sense of appreciation for it.
You have to understand the Lakota Res accent.
Not only that, it's just the way rap works in general.
The one he sang for his mom, and that's, he loves his mom. He's a really good kid.
But he's come out into the forefront, and I think he's probably gonna be one of those faces of the next generation of political and entertainment leaders. I think he's got a bright future in front of him, and you need to get him down at UNO.
I would love to.
Well, call him up. Say,
I will.
Hey,
He'll
man,
come
this is
for
your auntie.
anti-prices. We have a film festival and a powwow.
Yeah.
We need to shake loose some more Maza for those projects.
Maybe he'll
also,
come down
there's
for
a young
auntie
man.
just for you to make him some cookies or something. He'll come down for that.
We'll have Shayla make him fry bread. Also, there's a young man. I wish I would have done a little research because I never would have been able to say his name. But the first time I saw him was actually on Bill Maher. He's a group of young indigenous people, and he's native from Mexico. He's a Mayan, I believe, from Mexico, and they're about climate change and about protecting the earth. And he goes around speaking. He's a very intelligent young man. I've seen him speak probably 3 or 4 times, but he's going to be a leader too. For the first time, we're seeing people stand up together in a non-militant way. And I understand militant because you had to be. You had to be militant to be heard in the 60s and 70s. Now these kids are saying, I'll stand toe-to-toe with you and we'll discuss the issues. I know who I am. I know what I'm talking about.
You know what? Throw out there as a rising star, at least in the legal and judicial community, is I went to a tribal court judges conference down in Albuquerque, and there's I wish I could remember her name. If you would have asked me what we're gonna, who our Indians of the year were,
People know we're old. They can Google it.
She was appointed as a justice on the Minnesota Supreme Court, and she's relatively young, in her 40s, and very articulate and very just an entertaining speaker. She talked about her background, and I was impressed with her. And I think if in a correct political climate, I think she might have a shot at maybe as one of the leaders or the the short list of for U.S. Supreme Court. Her and Diane Humetewa, who is a federal district court judge
love
down
to read about
in
her.
Arizona. So both of those
We've
ladies,
got good people coming.
Yeah, and I'll give a shout out to my daughters too. Both of them
Yeah.
are doing well at the Winnebago Tribal Court as judges, and so there's
Mine's
a lot.
going to
There's
get
a
her
lot
master's.
There's a lot of young, up and coming people that just don't get the recognition that they do nationally, and I think they'll get their day. But as far as old school people, Billy Mills.
Mills.
If you've never had a chance to meet him or to listen to him speak or what he does, he's just down to earth. He's just, as someone who has as much recognition and fame and stuff, he's really easy to talk to and does not have an air of arrogance or anything of that sort. He's just a genuine nice guy. I'm thoroughly impressed with him, and I wish the country as a whole had more exposure to what he does and him as a person, because if he ever ran for office, he'd have been amazing.
Yep, I agree 100%. He cares. And the sad thing is, we're losing leaders. We lost Trudell, we lost, now I'm drawing a blank. Dennis Banks.
Dennis Banks, yeah, we lost him this past year.
We lost him this past year. So it's time for the young ones to stand up and do what we didn't. Do what we hoped we would do, but do what we didn't.
Yeah, I know, it's too late for us.
Yep. We're just going to eat and read the paper and comment on it on our radio show.
All we can do is sit around here and just talk about people. That's the extent of our potential.
Until you have to get me out of jail first, doing a sit-in.
No, I'm not going to get you. I'm not getting her out of jail. You're staying in jail.
He says
I'll give you some legal advice, but I'm not gonna get you out of jail.
You say that, you'd even bail me out.
You're gonna have to call your daughter for that.
Oh no, I'm calling you.
No.
You'll answer my calls.
You know what? You might call my wife. She might raise
it.
bail money for you.
She would.
But not me. You're staying there.
No.
What else has happened this year, and that we can?
Well, locally we had that Bear Hills issue.
Well, before we talk about that, a little bit before that, the white clay issue. White clay, Nebraska. That natives around this area have been concerned about for a number of years, and thanks to a lot of the work of Frank Lemire, he was influential in that. the state of Nebraska canceled the license for the liquor stores in White Clay, Nebraska. So that was a big accomplishment for Frank and a lot of others, but primarily Frank has taken the lead on that.
True that.
So, your friends are my friend, but you hang with them most of the time. That's her brother.
My dear friends, the Lemaires.
Okay. All right. Also, sort of on the downside was the Zachary Bear Heels issue here. For those of you not familiar, a young native guy passing through town. I think he was from Oklahoma, catching the bus.
Going home to Rosebud.
Yeah, going back to your people. He encountered some police at a convenience store, and unfortunately for him, he was
murdered.
Tased
10 times
10,
after
12
he
times,
was
punched, and ultimately died. And that created a lot of stir and issue here in the Omaha area.
It was another step in a much larger issue.
Yeah, it was. And legally, here's the problem. And there's been some call for the two police officers. There were 4 police officers. 2 of them were charged criminally, but the most serious charge was a felony assault and not either murder and or manslaughter. And the problem with why they weren't charged with murder as opposed to being charged with an assault was that the county coroner labeled the cause of death as excited delirium, not necessarily from the tasing, not as a direct result of what the police did, which from a legal standpoint
Is crooked?
ties the hands of the prosecutor's office. And I know there's been a lot of calls from the community to have them charged with murder, but given what the coroner did, it sort of cut the ankles out from underneath them.
When I read that, I was incredulous. Could you even believe that?
I was stunned by that, because that's not necessarily
Even
an
cause of
accepted
death.
legal cause of death in most.
But they'd used it once before in the same kind of case.
And basically it's a cover for the
It
police.
is. And I mean, an obvious cover. I mean, it's not like they're even trying to cover up the cover. It's like, here, we made up a new reason for death, so we can't charge these officers, kind of is how it seems.
And I'm going to give a legal prediction here.
Please, well, I don't think we need a legal prediction. We all know.
I don't think the police are going to be convicted of the crime.
No.
No, I don't think they will.
And like I said, part of a bigger systemic problem. We all need to be responsible for our own actions.
Well, but you also have to understand some of the legal case precedent that gives the police a lot of latitude on how they handle things. And basically, as I used to tell my students when I taught criminal justice classes, is that if you say you fear for your life in front of a jury, it's pretty much a.
The young man was handcuffed.
I know it's extremely tragic. I'm not disputing that. I'm just telling you from the legal standpoint what happens in courtrooms, and
Well,
having been in a courtroom a time or two myself, it's going to be an extremely. At this point they've gotten to the probable cause stage, and it's relatively, I shouldn't say easy, but the burden to get to probable cause is this much. And there's at least this much. But to get to the legal hurdle of beyond reasonable doubt for a conviction is going to be extremely difficult.
Well, and the thing is, even if they just get jail time, those policemen are going to be walking into a prison full of prisoners, and there's going to be a lot of Native Americans.
No, I don't even think it's going to get to that point. I think they're going to be acquitted, and I don't think there's going to be an issue of them serving jail time.
And we're bringing up children in this world, and grandchildren, and great-grandchildren,
And
where there's no accountability
the thing that
for a mentally ill young man, and that's at the bottom of this.
I was going to make that point. The thing that's concerning to me is that, I've dealt with the mental health issue with family, and that's a difficult, extremely difficult issue. And basically our government doesn't want to do anything about it. If you look at our prisons now, a vast number of people that are in prison suffer from mental illnesses.
Yes.
And we don't treat the mental illnesses, and we just let it go, and then it manifests itself in what we perceive to be criminal behavior, and ultimately we're going to have more people in prison than are being treated, and all we do is make matters worse by putting them in prison. And it's a very frustrating topic, and I think we should move on. One
more thing though, you know, it's hard when you tell your children, if you're in trouble, find a policeman. But now children are being raised that are of whose skin is brown, whatever color, are being raised that the policemen are not our friends. That you're not going to get justice from the police.
And I don't want to get to the point of saying, you know, all the police we should be leery, because I know, I have several students that are on the police force, and I know.
That are wonderful people.
And I know a number of police officers and law enforcement, and I know basically they're good people, and I think.
But how do you know who you
The
got?
officers that were involved in this, you know, their records did not indicate that, you know, they would be in this situation. It just, and this is going to be part of their defense. You know, once you get into that environment of having to deal with something that things just steamroll, and it's difficult to stop, and your emotions get carried away, and it leads to situations like this. But anyway, like I said, I'm
It'll be
myself
interesting
being
to
drugged
see where
down.
that goes. It'll
What's
be
that?
interesting to see where that goes. And if there's ever a silver lining, at least it's bringing awareness to mental illness and how those people are handled.
Well, I
It's
would
bringing
hope.
awareness to some problems with the police department.
I would hope that they focus on that more so than what I've seen it given so far. Because to me, that's the big issue, is dealing with the mental health issues. But
well, it shouldn't be politicized.
It
should
will
It
be,
should be
but-
kept to the issues of, there was a mentally ill young man who was
But
murdered
we've got
in
some other
Omaha.
good things I want to talk about before the show ends. And I want to give a shout out to our good friend, Donnell Keeler.
Woo woot.
Yeah, Donnell
I wish I
Keeler's,
could Lulu. I would Lulu right now.
He's a artist and a good friend of ours, good friend of the programs that we have at UNO. His artwork was selected for the native license plate here in Nebraska.
You can get them online. They're $40. They are
They're
beautiful.
They're $43. If you have a chance to take a look at them, go to the DMV website, and you can get them. You can get them personalized. And I got I think 2 of them so far.
What did you personalize on it?
I put Omaha, U-M-A-H-A, because Omaha was taken.
Yep.
And the other versions of it was taken. So I got that one. And the other one says native, N-A-T-1-V. You have to be creative.
Yep.
If they're taken, if the actual word is taken, you might want to look at using numbers, because we went N-A-T-1-V.
Do you think he dog's taken?
What's that?
You think he dog's taken?
No, he dog is not taken. I checked. There's a couple of other things that aren't taken, so that if you're...
Ooh, I shouldn't have said that. Now it'll start a rush on the people.
Yeah,
trying
I'm
to
sure
get the
there's
name.
going to be a rush on people wanting he dog on their native
Hey, it's a
plate.
happening place.
But if you get a chance to take a look, it's going to be they're going to be the rage of 2018 if you're native.
It's the horses, right? Or the
horses,
buffalo.
and they've got buffalo. It's pretty cool.
And nobody deserves it more than Donnell.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, one of those people, one of those quiet leaders that's always there to help whoever
Yeah,
needs
Donnell's
help.
a great guy.
That's always in a
and
great mood. Opposite of you.
This is a great recognition for him, and we're going to give him a shout out for doing
Oh
that.
yeah, and we're going to proudly be toting those plates everywhere.
Okay, and basically just a brief summary of what happened at UNO in 2017. It was
amazing things.
It was sort of the year.
Biggest powwow ever.
It was our best powwow ever.
was
I think.
It was. There's no doubt it was. And I was afraid we were going to have our skin ripped off and handed to us because we lost some funding, so we didn't feed.
We didn't serve a meal,
Nobody
but
cared,
it worked out well.
because we let them bring in their own food.
Thanks to Eddie Z, the urban MC, and Gary Farmer.
For the first time ever, I was hoping people were bringing in illegal meat pies.
Yeah. We also had our film festival again.
Rumble, wow.
Rumble, and other things that
You know,
happened
he
there.
was an amazing guest to have.
Yeah, Ernie
He
Webb.
was gracious.
Shout out to Ernie Webb.
Yeah, he came even when he didn't need to come. You know who else did that? Irene Bedard.
Yes.
She came, and Graham Greene. Graham Greene came and stayed and watched the movies.
Every single movie
You know,
you watched.
we've been very lucky that we've had stars, but we haven't had anybody who's acted like star. Gary, once in a while, will go a little star on
Gary,
us.
Gary's a good friend of mine. He's been to UNO this year.
He's our bro.
In 2017, 3 different times.
I know, he is our mascot now.
He was our co-host or co-MC.
But he can go diva. You have to admit, Gary can go diva.
Gary's fine. And he was there in September for what we thought was our Tribal Management and Emergency Services conference, but because of
Pesky
emergencies that happened in Florida, hurricanes, we had to postpone that until April. But Gary, we had booked Gary as our social event, and he brought the Troublemakers.
I forgot.
With Derek Miller. Derek, if you ever get a chance to
and they played some music from
see
Rumble.
the Troublemakers and Derek Miller, they're great.
So we do so many good things. I even forgot that one. But that was the funnest night. Those guys can rock.
They can. Derek was also in Rumble. Yeah. But looking forward as we wrap this up, 2018 looks to be another great year for us, and we've got a number of things planned. And stick around and watch the show, and we'll maybe talk about some of those things. And I'm sure new students will emerge and do some good things. And
I'll bring some on. We'll have a student of the month.
Gretchen graduated.
Yes.
And that was another great accomplishment in 2017. And we have other students that are...
and nobody dropped out or flunked out, so woohoo right on.
And our floor director also is back in school, hopefully
getting her master's.
Master's degree, and she'll be taking on this. But
she'll be cranky.
Yeah, so we really do have a bright future, and as much as some bad things have happened, we're going to be doing great things in the future, and we'll hope to see you next week.
Happy New Year.